without further ado, I want to introduce the group chairman of OANDO, which is one of the largest energy companies on the continent, focusing on energy transition, of course also on oil and gas. He is dynamic, he's phenomenal, and really grateful for the fact that you took this opportunity to support the next generation. Again, what we do here at MIPAD is to connect the next generation with established leaders so that you can have opportunities and possibilities that we never had, right? So we develop the best and the brightest. Can I get an amen to that? Amen. All right. Okay, so let's give a standing welcome, a New York welcome to the one and only Adewale Tinubu, Group Chairman of OANDO.
They say in Africa, the wise man learns from the mistakes of others, not from their own experiences. So as you forge a life, okay, I want you to learn from my experiences, okay? And so that you don't need to make any expensive mistakes, right? So let me start by, I thank them, thank you guys for putting this together. It's extremely important that people get a chance to be inspired today. And thanks you guys for stepping up and saying you want to lead, okay? Because leadership requires conviction, right? And what's a leader? And a leader is somebody who takes you to where you're too scared to go, right? So you will start as a leader. You're going to start by being scared of yourself, which is what happens. You get scared of your dreams, all right? And quite honestly, if your dreams don't scare you, then they're not big enough for you, okay? Because the whole essence of life is to rise above your own expectations, capacities, contraction. Whenever you woke up believing in, you can be bigger, better, brighter, smarter, sharper, and you did not make any apologies for it. Okay. So I'm a confirmed maverick. I'm comfortable in my maverick skin. And when I started out in life, people thought I was weird. Okay. And they thought I was weird because I was too ambitious. And all these things in me was, why do what you do? Why do you do that? I said, possible. And the word impossible is so pucker. No, you're never going to achieve it. So you're going to be repeatedly told whatever dreams you have that, oh no, they're too big for you. You're not going to achieve it. And it's not because they don't like you, they say to protect you, because the cost of failure usually is sadness, right? Okay, so nobody wants, so your loved ones don't want you sad. So your mom's going to say to you, like my youngest brother wanted to be a musician. So one day, my mom was like almost crying because he said he's going to leave school and go to be a musician. And my mom said, you see, you're my son, and don't be very much, but nobody will like your songs, I don't. Right? So the point is that, and he became DJ Olu. Now he's an on-trader anyways. I think he still goes to the studio at night to follow his passion. But who knows, maybe he would have been a Drake if he had stuck to his music. Yeah, instead of being a tedious lawman as he is today, because he works in our group, right? So the first point I think to note is don't be scared of your dreams, okay? Leadership is courage. Believe in yourself and believe in your dream, okay? So when I look back at my career, the first thing I wanted to be, or I recognized I was that I was audacious. I wanted to do things that hadn't really done before. But I'm sure when the Obo brothers said they wanted to fly the plane, everybody in their street told them they were cuckoo. So now we all fly. When the Americans, I think it was Kennedy, that said we're going to put a man in space before the end of this generation. Yeah. The world moves by audaciousness, and so leadership really is about audaciousness. Never be scared of failure, because at the end of the day, failure is just really about a learning experience. I've failed a lot more times than I've ever succeeded, and I think that all people see is for every round of failure or every series of failure is always a spectacular way. And all you see is that spectacular way. But that spectacular way is entirely based on years and years and weeks and of mental anguish, of failure, of self-doubt. So get used to self-doubt and be strong for it, because the reality is that it's going to happen. And like any tree, speed is not necessarily the answer. Because if you go fast and you're a skinny tree, the slightest wind comes, it blows you down. But if you go slowly, right, then the roots spread and you get stability and you get a foundation, and you can withstand the shocks that come, because those shocks are going to come. In terms of my dreams, I qualified as a lawyer, and I went to school in Law School of Economics in the UK and invested a little for those who are from the UK. And I went back to Nigeria. I did law school in Nigeria. I was a lawyer for 1 year. And as a pupil, I was taken into meetings. And I used to take notes, because I was the youngest in the firm, so I took the notes down. And one day we went to see a client, and he said, I'm going to buy this company, I'm merging this, I'm going to build this product, or whatever it is. And when we got out of the meeting, I told my boss that I think I want to be the guy on that side of the table. And he thought I was being silly. And I said, because I don't want to note people's dreams. I want to go out there and act my own dreams and fantasies out. So I'm sure he wasn't too pleased when he heard that when I explained that to him. And after a couple of days, I quit. I told him I was going to. So I quit, and I ended up with no job, no income. I had no office. And then I asked my mom if we could use the garage in the house as my office. And she said yes. Okay, so I found some old furniture, a table, a chair. Okay, and then we had landlines. So I asked if I could take the cable, so I could make an extension. So extension of the family phone, I put it in the garage. I painted the room, and I wore a suit. I had one suit and a tie, and they said I'm open for business. That's how I started. Okay, and I did research around the industry of the world, and I said, what would I want to do? And I like the oil industry. Okay, I didn't figure out there was oil I wanted to do, but I wanted to do something which would bring me to New York, right? Which would keep me connected to the international community, to London. I wanted to wake up in the morning and make a foreign phone call. The international business. But why should I talk to the locals only? That's boring. I don't know. Talk to them in Australia. That's what the weather is like. Right? And I looked around and I said, okay, fine. Made some notes as to what was interested. The oil industry that interested. I took the oil industry. I wanted to make money. There's no reason why you can't be successful, right? Because you're not going to be able to go around the world if you have no money anyway. So I wanted to be able to see the world. And I wanted to be excited and challenged, and I want to know that there are no frontiers. And so I picked the oil industry and I went for the oil industry. Okay? And I had an opportunity, didn't know how I was going to do it, but I bumped into a friend who had a contract to do something. It was to transport diesel fuel for the fishing trawlers. So that's, I mean, fishing around, figuring out what entree would I use in the oil industry. And then I had another friend of mine who was a lawyer, and his firm represented a distressed shipping company that was going under, and then he had an old tanker that had been seized by the crew, because the crew hadn't been paid. And under shipping laws, two people have a lien on the ship, okay? A ship owner has a lien on a cargo. If you don't pay the freight, you can seize your cargo. And crew have a lien on the ship if you don't pay their wages. So the guys exercise an old Admiralty regulations by saying, we're not sailing. They went to the middle of the ocean, parked the ship, dropped the anchor, and said, well, I'll give you back the ship as you pass. Okay? So I went out there with my friends, and I had no life jackets on in the middle of it. We arrived very late because we couldn't afford a flight early in the day. We had to end up taking a cheap flight. And we're going into this speedboat, and we're going, and suddenly I realize that it's dark. I look left, I look right, and I realize we're going offshore to go see this ship. I had no life jacket, and I said to myself, I don't know what I'm doing here. Right? I'm going to die with this dream of mine. 2010. Right? And then, as soon as I saw the ship bobbing on the water, it was an old 1945 tanker with a gun turret at the rear. Yeah, it was like a Second World War US Navy warship. Right? So it was thick. The skin was very thick. Small ship, maybe to 100 meters length. And as soon as I started bubbling the water, I knew it was my destiny. It's that simple. I knew that this is the reason why I came here. And, we went there, we negotiated with crew, I agreed a number, I came back. All right, we had all kinds of challenges, couldn't pay the freight. I had to borrow money at 10% interest on a monthly basis. You ran borrowing money at 120% per annum, and almost dealing with quasi loan sharks, so not quite loan sharks, but loan sharks in suits, And we went from, I could tell you story after story, we went from one ship to 2 ships to 3 ships by simply being efficient, by delivering on time, and I did all the crazy stuff that the large foreign corporations wouldn't want to do. So if anything in the oil industry which wasn't profitable is what I would do, okay? And so we moved diesel, we to the ships who were shooting seismic for the oil prospecting offshore Nigeria. I found that refineries would shut in the north of the country for several months a year because their tanks would be full of oil. So I hired tankers, road tankers, to load the oil, and I had no terminal, but I had an edible oil tank in the port, and I put diesel fuel into it, okay? Because that's all I could find, right? And then I would build cargoes, and then I would export them to Corpus Christi in Texas. And we went on, and we built a company. During the privatization in the year 2000, the government sold Essos downstream assets. There was 250 petrol stations. We bidded for it, and everybody thought we would lose. I was in my early 30s. I didn't have any money, okay, but I bidded first. And that's also something that has been real in my career, that consistently, I've always had a dream to own something, never had the means, okay, but I've always, first and foremost, you need to picture where you want to be in 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, 25 years, and then put the things in place to get there. So I knew I wanted to have a large institution as a platform, so I wouldn't have to hire petroleum, palm oil, edible oil tanks to put fuel into. I wouldn't have to do all to cut corners to achieve our overall objectives. I needed a platform. Didn't have the money, but first of all, I raised the debt. Okay, I hadn't raised the debt, okay. I said, we're going to buy this company. We first of all bidded for it. Everybody said we would lose, but we won the bid. So having won the bid, I raised the debt. And they asked you when I was raising there, where's your equity coming from? And I said, don't worry, the equity is coming, right? Nobody equity is coming. But I raised the debt first. And having raised the debt and won the bid, and I went to the third person and I said, I bought this company, or I've got this, I've won the bid, I've raised the debt, now I need some equity from you, okay? And you're not the only one I'm talking to, by the way, right? And I ended up raising the equity, and we bought the first company. Then after we had about 10 ships in our fleet, shipping, we bought a sizable company. And then 2 years later, we restructured that company. Another one came on the market, okay, with another 250 petrol stations, and we acquired this, okay. This time around, it was the Italian National Oil Company's branch in Nigeria. And then we merged the 2 companies, and I rebranded them as OANDO, which was my original name, called Ocean and Oil, okay, which is a shipping company and an oil company. And then, once again, like I said, in terms of diversification and expansion, the multinationals were very big, the Chevron, Shell, the Seven Sisters as they're called, so I couldn't really compete with them. So I had to find niche opportunities, and I found that LNG was being exported out of the country, which was refined natural gas, to the US. And here, for example, in New York, you used to use, your heating oil you still see those big tanks on top of roofs that have heating oil. And gas was now a cleaner fuel, more acceptable fuel because of smog. A lot of countries were now using gas. So gas is abundant in Nigeria. We used to ship LNG out there. But there was no gas being used locally. So I built the first local distribution pipeline. And once again, I negotiated with the government. I got a franchise to do it. Didn't have the money, but went to the first 10 industries and said, I'm going to give you guys, if you sign here, I'm going to give you guys to sign. So I got 10 factories to sign. And I went to the pipeline company and said, I want to buy your pipes on credit. Okay? And laid the first set of pipes, connected those guys, and the cash flows started coming in. I leveraged the cash flows of the first 10 firms, right? First 10 kilometers, and I borrowed money against first 10 kilometers and built the next 19 kilometers. And I commissioned phase 2, borrowed money against the next 19 kilometers, and built the next first. Under the end of building 150 kilometers around the city. The point being that, once again, that's another story of resilience, of basically planning where you want to be without really, you're never really going to know, have the resources to achieve what you want to achieve. The most important thing is to know where you want to go, have the courage. Okay, you're never ready for leadership. Okay, you simply just have to draw the line and say, let's go, let's just do it now. Okay, and then as you build out, okay, you will find the solutions to solve the challenges that have stopped your vision from being a reality. Because you're an artist and life is your canvas and you're going to paint it. And at the end of the day, you know, you don't know a good painting until you finish it, right? It's not that you do halfway through and then you say, Picasso said, oh, I did 3 lines and I knew it was a masterpiece. No, he completed it. So at the end of the day, you need to keep moving. And then we went from there to go. I diversified into the upstream, and we took risk once again. Okay, and all through that time, we would be told it can't be done. We wanted to build a company that was indigenous, okay, that was owned by black professionals, okay, Nigerians, okay, global in nature and in standards and in systems and in processes. And I remember going into the national oil company to negotiate and being told that, who does this guy think he is? Does he think he's from ExxonMobil or something? And they used to laugh at me for thinking I was, but I thought I was better than ExxonMobil. So as I was said, I was going to do a better job than they were, right? And so we went into the upstream once again. We bidded for the next round of assets. I went to the upstream, and I remember going to London. I was telling my executive assistant yesterday the story because I suddenly remembered it. When we bought our first asset, which was $200 million, okay, once again, we didn't have the money to do it at the next level. But I went to see a financial institution and I said, okay, if I were going to buy this company, well, we need the debt to buy this company. And they said, where's the equity? I said, don't worry, it's coming, right? And so they gave us the debt. And our capital structure was senior debt, which basically means, you know, the first lien, if a typical mortgage of your property, remember the first loan is your senior debt, right? Which is going to probably your 20-year mortgage when you buy a house. Then if the value of your house increases, you get a second loan against it. But that second loan is secondary in terms of priority, right? And then your equity is what you put 10% for the. So it's no difference. And I keep saying to people, you know, building a business, running a company is no different from running your paycheck account or managing, or the structure of financing your mortgage is no different from financing corporate equity. So there's nothing that is fancy about this stuff that people make out to do. I simplify tasks a lot and turn them into simple equations of life. And I say to people, you know, you manage efficiently because you're able to manage the income that goes into your bank account to ensure that I'm going to spend X, Y, Z, having fun, I'm going to send some money to my mom, I'm going to buy this piece of furniture I've been planning, I'm going to buy this clothing, and I want to save some money for a holiday. It's no different from running a company. Right? That money you save for the holiday or anything becomes a reserve in the company for a rainy day or for something. So there's no magic, okay? The only difference is that by the time you have a large corporation, it's convoluted because it's complex. But it's complex in volume, but it's simple in logic, okay? And if you extend yourself, then you fail because you can't pay your bills, right? Okay. And so we were able to get to that, and I didn't have the assets, so I couldn't get a second mortgage. So I went to a local bank and I said to a local bank that, okay, I'm going to buy this, but I want you to sell it, right, to me. And if I don't pay you by X days, for example, then it will revert back to you. So I was able to get a second mortgage. And then I eventually went and we raised the equity. And we did the same principle of raising the cash to do the ship was no different from doing a $200 million transaction. And we grew, we paid that loan, and we did another one. In 2014, we did our biggest deal. We bought ConocoPhillips' business in Nigeria for $1.8 billion. And then I knew that we were going to have rights to operate a much larger joint venture, because it's a joint venture with the Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation, Conoco, and ENI of Italy. And 10 years later, we were able to buy the operator's stake, because in the joint venture, the three parties, the operator is the one who drills the wells, does everything. And I wanted to be an operator. I wanted our firm to be in control of the destiny of the joint venture. I wanted us to make the decisions on costs, because I knew that we'll save costs. I wanted us to make the decisions on technology, okay? And, he said about MIPAD, or what he did in terms of handing over to a 25-year-old and seeing the fact remains, I do that. I think I'm the oldest guy in my group right now. I'm 58 years old. I must be the oldest guy in my group, right? And even though I like to pretend I'm young, because I like music, and I like to go to concerts, and I like those trousers, hopefully but I recognize the importance of ensuring that the next generation, okay, is in the fray of things, and not just there for decoration, but actually making those decisions. Because the reality is that they are faster, they're sharper, they're smarter. What they lack is experience. And what is experience? Experience really is just knowing when to stop. Yeah, experience really is just knowing the depth of pain, right? It doesn't mean that when a young person falls down, they don't feel the same pain as an older person. But the older person knows that if I fall down X number of times, I may not be able to get up. But a younger guy or a younger female can take chances because they haven't fallen enough. So maybe you have 100 times to fall, and I already fell 95 times, and I can't take a chance. So you do need to go to the next level. It has to be somebody who's ready to take a chance. Just like I took chances too in my lifetime, right? And my chances ended up being successful. I was at the edge many times, but I never ever once doubted that I wouldn't pull through. I became close to bankruptcy, and it was normal. And I took it as a lesson to be learned that no matter how high oil prices are today, prices will come down. No matter how successful you are today, plan for the rainy day. And I learned to start managing the downside risk, knowing that the upside will always take care of itself. So worry about things going wrong, not things going right. Just enjoy the ride of things going right, but just worry about things going wrong. And we did what we did. So what have I learned about life in itself, I've learned many things, and maybe one thing is purpose. Key thing about running a business, in my opinion, is purpose. Purpose means that your purpose could be, I want to be rich. Your purpose could be, I want to build something, I want to have some fun. Purpose could be, I want to exceed my own mental capacity. I want to create something, or I want to make beauty, or like a musician, I want to make a tune to make people dance. Okay, my success in my activity is the joy that other people enjoy, which is why musicians always say, "Oh, the fans, all about the fans," because the reality is, without no fans, there's no star anyway, right? Okay, so they live for you, they live for your appreciation. Having purpose enables you to deal with things going wrong, right? Because if you have no purpose and you hit the first brick wall, you're going to quit, right? Okay, so that will be the first P. Second P is performance. You need to execute. You need to, if you have 5 tasks and you want to deliver on 5 tasks, you need to go through 5 tasks. And to a certain extent, it probably puts you out of certain social scenes, because I remember losing friends, not because we fought or anything, but because I just couldn't go to the bar with them every day, right? Or they'd start at the bar at 5 p.m. straight from work, right? And then they'll be there till 11 o'clock. And I'd show up and join them for last orders at 10. And they'll say, where have you been? And I'll say, I've been working. I'd be looking at me, what's wrong with you? Were you 24 or 23? Why are you killing yourself? You don't know whole life. But I had purpose, so I didn't miss those good times. So I disappeared a lot. When I'd come back, there'd be some song that they'd be playing and everybody would be humming the song. And I said, when did this song come out? And they go, where have you been, you know? But the truth of the matter is I'd been working. So I'd shut myself out. I was listening to old music. I didn't know new music had come out, and I was just focused on next thing I would say is people. People are everything. You know, build the right. You've got to treat people fairly. Okay, you've got to have integrity. I raised billions and hundreds of millions of dollars, and costing billions too, right? Because people trusted that we would deliver. Not because the assets sounded good or the deal sounded good, but simply because my word was always in my book. And when I couldn't deliver, I would tell them in advance that, you know, that loan I owe you, or that history, I would tell the bank in advance. And all the bank, you'll be shocked that all the bank wants to know is that they're going to default in 3 months' time. So they can plan for that default. Right? Okay? And maybe some prudential guideline of some sort. But if they know you're going to default, then they don't get, they don't have to penalize their books. You know, they have all these rules with auditors. Because they can take some reserves and plug in the air or restructure your loan or anything. So integrity is everything. Teamwork, okay, you've got to have the right team. You've got to trust your team, you've got to be open. I have a rule in my company, you know, I don't like corridor talk. Whatever there is to talk about in the company, we're not friends, we're colleagues. We're friends after work, we're here, we came to work, so nothing's personal. Let's sit down, let's talk through the issues. If I have a problem, and I keep it, if I have a corporate problem, I keep it to myself, then it's my problem, which happens a lot of the time when people hide stuff they've done wrong, whatever it is. If I share it with you, then it becomes our problem. You know, and what else is there? And I actually said I'd write some stuff there. Just give me 1 second.
Let's give him a round of applause. Let's encourage him.
Afternoon. Thank you so much for today. My name is Mary Grace. I'm a trainee solicitor at Clifford Chance, and I also studied law at LSE. So shout out to the Beavers. So my question is, coming from an industry like law, where things are very rigid and in place, and moving into oil, you of course had to be a disruptor. So if you were to start your entrepreneurial journey today, how would you go about being disruptive, and in what industries would you look to do that?
With a law degree, you end up in a master chef instead of in the end. In terms of industries that interest me, okay, surprisingly, the music industry interests me. I would like to have been a music producer or / entrepreneur.
Call Jay.
I think there's a lot of money to have been made, and I think streaming changed the world and the future of music. And if you look at Afrobeats today, Afrobeats is huge because the audience was a global audience. And when it was vinyl records, you had to ship them. So countries that had shipping, the opportunity to ship and produce goods and services was the Western world. Africa is 3% of GDP. So of course, a lot more American records are likely to get shipped to Africa than records getting shipped back to the US, right? But the reverse happened. And when our artists stopped pretending they were American and didn't go man and shit and whatever it is, and they sang songs with their own accent, with their own words, with their own rhythms, with their own feelings, then the world listened to them. Right? So that's another lesson in life about being original. We won. Afrobeats artists became global stars by being true to who they were. You know, so that's yeah.
Fantastic.
And the other thing for me would be marketing, because I never saw the world as a very large marketplace. I knew it was a large marketplace, but I never connected with it. So I can imagine the likes of, going into that shop downstairs, looking at all those different computers, and then seeing those guys who are putting a product together, in their factory, because their own factory is where they design tech products, right, for example. But the bottom line, there's marketing to do with it. And then from Nike to, you name it, brands have truly exploded in value, okay? And I would probably have liked to have done something in terms of connecting the human mind with merchandise
My name is Esther. I studied history at uni actually. Right now I'm a product management analyst at JP Morgan Chase in the UK. My question, following up from the other question, was what core values do you instill in your younger employees to make sure that they achieve, not just for the company, but for themselves as well?
Teamwork, respect, integrity, passion, and professionalism. Those are core values. And and how did we get those core values? We did a little retreat when we were probably this size, and we asked people to tell us what was important to them in the workforce, in the company. And those were the things that came out, and there's been no reason to change.
You schooled abroad, you studied abroad. Why was it important to you to go back to Nigeria to start again?
Do I want to be just one of these guys, opening the newspaper, shutting it down, going to the office, whatever? Or do I want to go and try and do something great? And I felt that my country, my continent, had so many problems, and I wanted to go fix one of them and do something great there. And that's why I went back. And I also respect people who've chosen to come here, because I always say to them in Nigeria, Nigeria gets $26 billion a year from remittances from citizens in diaspora. Nigerian citizens don't pay $26 billion a year in taxes, right? So the federal government of Nigeria earns more money from remittances coming into Nigeria. The country gets more in GDP from people living abroad. So it's extremely important too that immigration is two ways. You know, immigration and immigration need to work, because you wouldn't be able to get the skills. I mean, it's like what Trump is doing in the US is very dangerous, because you're going to lose a lot of the quality of, by making this B1 visas $100,000 for tech people, a lot of the knowledge that came into the US by people coming to work in the US. If you look at, Google has an Indian CEO, I think Amazon has an Indian CEO, but 3 or 4 of them are Indians, and none of them went to school in the US, they went to school in India, right? So and 46% of the total workforce in the tech world are actually people of color, right? So that immigration is what drives the innovation, because you are getting the benefit of global knowledge. And so, this whole diaspora is one of the key things, if you ask me, that's actually propelling the pace of innovation that the world is experiencing today. Because everybody is moving in and out of everybody's comfort zone, creating products, creating stars, creating music, creating movies. Everything is happening, and the world is moving at a much faster pace. I mean, every new decade, the innovation is like twice the amount of the decades before. That's because we're converging as one world. So it's something that should be encouraged.
Good afternoon, everybody. My question is, what's the biggest change in how you hire and develop leaders now as opposed to your earlier days?
For me, merit. Merit is the primary basis for hiring people. So I look for people who are super smart and who are super, driven. They want to succeed. They have to have hunger, they have to have passion for what they want to do. I'm forced. I come from a society that requires people to be taken care of now and again, so I put a quota like 10% for people who we have to hire, because the system says we must hire them. But I try and make sure at least 90% of the people come from who we want to.
Okay.
All right. All right.
Okay. All right. 3, 2, 1. 3, 2, 1. One more. 3, 2, 1. Perfect. Thank you, guys.